Well, first of all, thank you so much for coming out of your way to tell us the story. Can you tell everyone who you are?
Daniel Beverness. I'm originally from California. I moved to Iowa about 2 years ago. And I had a son who passed away from what they called SIDS at the time. And due to my research and watching you guys and my wife and her mother, I've come to believe that that's not what happened. And I think it was vaccine related.
All right, so let's go back to, well, let's show everybody
Yeah.
pictures of your beautiful baby.
Tristan was born in 2007. I was way younger at the time. I was only 20 years old. And my wife at the time then was younger, even was 19. And it was never even a question to not vaccinate or not listen to what the doctors told us to do. It's just what we were supposed to do. So we went through with, the regular schedule, if you will. And even back then, it's been 10 years, so I don't even remember all the vaccines that he got. I remember going in when he was 2 months. I even remember thinking then, because I know the doctors were doing what I thought was the right thing, but I do remember thinking, that's a lot of shots, for a little tiny human being. And so he got his 2 months, and then when he was 4 months old, my wife and I went to our parents' house, and she went to lay him down for a nap, and she just got that motherly instinct or whatever you call it, and she went to check on him 5-6 minutes after she laid him down, and she found him not conscious, not breathing. She screamed, and I remember playing video games with my sister and just hearing that scream, and so you knew that just the worst thing that's ever happened. And we ran in there and we found him, and at the time I was certified and trained in CPR and infant CPR, so was my sister, and so we started CPR on him, and we actually resuscitated him, and he started breathing again, and we thought that's where it was over. The fire department, and I grew up in a real small town, the fire department, the police, they showed up right away, and we thought that's where it was over. They all said, you're a hero and this and that, and they took him to the local hospital down the road, and they said they wanted to do more tests, and they wanted to bring him to Santa Barbara Cottage. And so we did an ambulance ride to Santa Barbara, and he was breastfeeding on the way there, and we thought, this whatever happened, we didn't know what it was at the time, but we thought it was over and it was done. And he was at the hospital for about 3 hours, and they were doing some blood work, and we decided to go grab something to eat. And when we came back up, and it was the children's ICU, when we came back up, there was 10 doctors and nurses all surrounding him, and we knew it wasn't over. And he started having a grand mal seizure, and that's what they said was the first case. And from then on, the seizures just kept going until by the end of that day, he was on full life support and breathing machine and tubes and everything. And what they were classifying it as was a SIDS, but they call it interrupted SIDS. They don't get a lot of them. It's where you resuscitate. Most of the time, you find your child dead. But we got him to breathe again, and so they did a bunch of tests on him over the next 3 days, and none of the tests were shared with me, of course. I don't know what happened, and after 3 or 4 days, we were told he was going to be in a vegetable state his whole life, and it wasn't an option for my wife and I at the time. So we took him off life support after the 4th day. And yeah, that was it. We said goodbye. We had all our family and friends came, and they all took turns saying goodbye, and we said our goodbyes, and then that was it. Sorry.
It's okay.
And then the next like 2 or 3 weeks were just like a blur. It's like a blackout almost. I don't even remember it. And the funeral and everything. And it was never even a thought that was what, happened. That it could have been
Do you
that.
remember how soon after his 4 months vaccines that this happened?
Well, he actually it was before his 4 months vaccine.
So it was after his 2 months vaccine.
He was almost 4 months old. He was scheduled to go in. I believe it was going to be like 3 days from then for his 4 month. And I remember my mom telling me, my mom works in childcare, spends a lot of time around kids, and she said something was just different after his 2 months. And I remember telling my mom, like, oh, there's a lot of shots, and I remember her she didn't want to tell me, she didn't want to scare me, but she said something's different with him now, like he had like a different stare, like something wasn't right. She even said something about almost a smell, like he didn't smell like a normal baby.
After the 2 months.
After the 2 months, yeah.
And
so I never saw it, and she never spoke about it. She didn't want to scare us. I mean, I told you we were young. I was 20 at the time. I didn't know what was going on.
Can you remember what he was like before he had the vaccines?
He was just normal.
I mean, these are beautiful pictures of him to remind everybody again about what a healthy
Well,
baby.
he was just a normal baby. He was breastfed, and he was a normal, happy baby. And, I try really hard to look back in that small gap of my life from the 2 to the 4 months. And like I said, it's like my brain doesn't want to go back to it. Like, this alone is hard enough.
I know.
And no, it's fine. But I try to, think about behavioral changes, and maybe this was that. And it wasn't until I started watching you guys and thinking about it, was that it,
Hang on 1 second, sorry. First of all, you need to know that we're really sorry about that. And,
Yeah.
and sadly, we're going to take a picture of Tristan and we're going to add him to this wall. But that changed your life going forward.
Oh, drastically.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So you have a beautiful boy here,
Yeah.
beautiful wife, and another baby
one
on the way. And vaccines?
No vaccines. Absolutely not. This boy's never had a vaccine. He's never had an ear infection. He's never had antibiotics. He's never gone to the doctor. He's been perfectly healthy.
9
And so
pounds,
you're-
8 ounces coming out. He's a big boy.
9
healthy
pounds.
boy.
Yeah. And then did they put you under pressure to vaccinate?
Oh,
Yes,
yeah. I
absolutely.
had to guard him like a hawk. He was born in California at the same hospital my first son died at. And I just remembered, because that's kind of what got it all going again, is going through this process again. And I remember thinking, how am I going to be with another kid? How protective am I going to be? And then when we found out she was pregnant, and we started talking about it and just looking into it and researching it, and just didn't want to do it.
Mm-hmm.
And I remember when he was born and they were taking care of her, and we went into the nursery, it's like you already filled out the paperwork, but then there's the nurses there, and they just are programmed, and I don't know if they know what they're doing, or they think they're doing what's right, and they just keep pushing you, and I remember them asking me in the hospital, this giant, big, healthy baby, and they were like, oh, we're going to give him his vaccines, and I had to reassure them, almost to the point where you're like, I'm going to hurt you if you try to touch this kid, you don't get where I'm coming from with this, so, but.
Yeah, we found it hard to even find doctors. There's some doctors that won't even accept you if you don't vaccinate. They won't even look at your baby for just even a well baby to measure him and just check everything. And also daycares. I stay at home because daycares, a lot of them won't let you have a child that's not vaccinated. So we've kind of just chosen the silent life and just stay at home and raise him, and yeah.
Did you ever see the paediatrician that gave Tristan the vaccines?
No, I never saw him afterwards. But I had a pediatrician that I went to growing up. His name was Dr. Medina. He's retired now. He was just destroyed by it. He didn't know what happened, and he was on the board at the hospital. And they had all these meetings. They told me about them, and I never saw any of the information that came out of it. Because they said they were I remember them in the hospital saying, this is rare for us to get an interrupted SIDS, and we want to find out what it is because they're trying to figure out what SIDS is. And I never saw or heard anything about it. I don't know if maybe because I was young and they didn't want to tell me.
Well, I mean, do find his contact details because the Vaxxed team are very happy to come and
Yeah. No, I know.
educate him on what SIDS is.
I know he's pretty open doctor, and I know he'd be open to talking to people. I'm pretty sure he's retired now. But
Well, thank you both.